Ladies and gentlemen, there are times in life when we look around and realize that everything we held dear is gone. Perhaps you've stood at the graveside of a loved one. Perhaps you've watched the life you built slowly crumble away. Maybe you sit today with an ache so deep words cannot describe it. Everything you love, you've lost. I want to tell you, you are not alone. You see, life on this earth is fragile. The things we hold in our hands can slip through our fingers. The people we cherish, the dreams we nurture, the places we call home, one day they can be taken from us. And in that moment, when we stand in the ruins, we ask, why? I have walked with men and women who've lost it all. Families torn apart, health stolen by disease, homes destroyed. And I have seen their tears, heard their cries in the night. I have cried those tears myself, maybe you have too. But let me tell you something that may surprise you. When everything you love is gone, it's not the end, it's not over. There is a presence that steps into that darkness, a gentle whisper in the storm, a hand reaching out when we fall to our knees. That presence is the love of God. When the world turns its back, He is still there. When everything falls apart, He is still holding you. You may have lost the things of this world, but you are never lost to God. I want you to hear me now. What you have lost is not greater than what God can restore. What you have lost in this life is not greater than what He has promised for eternity. The Bible says in Corinthians 4:18, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. My friend, the house can crumble, but your home is eternal. The body can fail, but your spirit is held in God's hands. The people we love may leave this world, but they are not gone from God. And one day there will be a reunion beyond what we can imagine. I have spoken to men who thought they had lost everything and found the peace of God in the quiet moments afterward. I have spoken to women who thought their hearts would never heal, yet found strength in prayer and hope in the promises of Scripture. You may feel broken now, but God specializes in mending broken things. You may feel empty now, but He can fill your soul with a peace the world cannot give. You may feel abandoned, but His word says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Everything I love, I lost. That's how it feels. But the truth is, what I loved in this life was never mine to keep. It was a gift, a blessing for a time. And though I grieve, I do not grieve without hope, because there is life beyond this one. There is love that never ends. There is a joy that no one can take away. Jesus said, come to me all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Rest for the grieving, rest for the weary, rest for the lost. So today, if you are in the middle of loss, I invite you to open your heart. Let God in, let Him comfort you. He knows what you're facing. He knows what you've lost. And He is not far away. The world may take, but God gives. The world may end, but His kingdom is forever. The world may change, but His love never does. One day you will see how all your tears were gathered, how all your pain was carried, how all you lost was not forgotten, but woven into something beautiful beyond what you can imagine. Loss is something every human being experiences, no matter who they are or where they come from. It does not discriminate. It finds its way into every life, every home, every heart. It may come as the loss of a loved one, the breaking of a relationship, the fading of a dream, the decline of health, or the ending of a season we thought would last forever. Loss walks into our lives uninvited and often without warning, leaving us feeling helpless and heartbroken. It strips away what we thought we couldn't live without, and we are left standing in the emptiness, trying to understand how life will ever feel whole again. But even in the most devastating moments of loss, there is something deep within the human heart that searches for meaning. We are not made to simply suffer without hope. There is something within us that longs to know that what we've lost matters, that it has a purpose beyond the pain. And I believe it does. A loss is never meaningless. Even when it feels like everything has been torn away, there is a greater story being written. The pain we endure in this life is not in vain. Every tear we shed, every heartache we bear, every goodbye we whisper, it matters. It is seen, it is known, and it is held by a loving God who does not waste a single moment of our lives. Anything more? When we experience loss, it can feel like we've been thrown into the deepest valley, a place where light doesn't seem to reach. We look for answers and often they don't come right away. But what we do find, if we listen closely and open our hearts, even in the smallest way, is that there is a presence with us in the valley. There is comfort even in the sorrow. We may not understand why something has been taken from us, but we can come to understand that we are not alone. Loss can strip away everything that is temporary and leave us with only what is eternal. And in that place of emptiness, we often encounter a deeper connection to God than we have ever known before. It is in those moments when we have nothing left to cling to in this world that we realize God has been holding us all along. Everyone faces loss because we live in a world that is temporary. Nothing here lasts forever. People we love will leave us one day, either by distance, by decisions, or by death. Success and achievements, no matter how great, will eventually fade away. Our bodies grow older and our strength wanes. This world is not our permanent home. It is a place where things come and go, where seasons change, where what we have today may be gone tomorrow, but there is something lasting beyond this world. There is a promise of eternity, and in eternity, nothing is ever lost. Loss can serve a purpose that we don't immediately see. It can refine us. It can humble us. It can teach us compassion for others who are hurting in ways we might never have understood before. When you've walked through deep grief, you find a softness in your heart for the brokenness of others. You are able to reach out a hand to someone else who is struggling because you know what it feels like to be there. Loss has a way of building strength in us that we didn't know we had. It strips away the superficial and the unimportant, and it reveals what truly matters. In the end, it draws our hearts toward things that are lasting and meaningful. The pain of losing something or someone we love never fully leaves us. We carry it with us, but it does not have to be a weight that crushes us. It can be something that shapes us, deepens us, and gives us a greater capacity to love. The love we shared with those we have lost does not disappear. It changes form. It lives on in memory, in legacy, and in the ways we choose to carry their spirit forward. And the dreams we thought were gone forever may give way to new dreams, ones we could not have imagined before the loss. Sometimes, the loss itself clears the way for something we never expected but desperately needed. Loss is not meaningless because we are not meaningless. Our lives have purpose, and every experience we walk through is part of that purpose. We are not accidents living out random lives with random suffering. We are created with intention, and our lives are watched over by a God who cares deeply about every moment. He sees what we have lost, and He does not dismiss it. He does not ignore our cries. Instead, He gathers up every tear and He works even in our suffering to bring about something good. There is redemption in our loss. That doesn't mean we won't feel the pain of it. It doesn't mean we won't grieve. But it does mean that our loss is not the end of the story. There is more to come. There is restoration beyond what we can see today. There is healing, even if it looks different than what we expected. What we have lost is not gone forever when we place our hope in something eternal. God has promised that one day He will make all things new. One day, every loss will be restored and every broken heart will be mended. Until then, we walk through this life knowing that even in the darkest moments, there is a light that never goes out, and there is a love that never lets go. Everything we see, touch, and hold in this life has an expiration date. The homes we build, the careers we pour our energy into, the possessions we collect, even the bodies we live in, they are all temporary. We live in a world where everything is in a constant state of change. Seasons come and go. People enter and leave our lives, and time moves forward whether we are ready for it or not. It is a truth that many of us try to ignore because it can be uncomfortable to face. Yet it is a truth that we all must eventually come to understand. Earthly things do not last forever. We spend much of our lives holding on tightly to the things of this world. We strive to accumulate wealth and success, thinking they will provide lasting security. We form deep relationships and friendships, believing they will stand the test of time. We celebrate milestones, build dreams, and hold close the things that bring us comfort. But sooner or later, we are reminded of how fragile and fleeting all of it is. A job can be lost in an instant. A home can be destroyed in a single moment. A loved one can leave this world unexpectedly. Even our strongest achievements, the ones we thought would define us, can fade with time. It's easy to place our hope and identity in these things because they are visible and tangible. They seem solid, reliable, and within our control. But when they are stripped away, when life pulls the rug out from under us, we are faced with the reality that none of it was ever truly ours to keep. The things of this world are passing. They are temporary shelters, temporary joys, and temporary markers along the road of life. They are blessings, yes, but they are not eternal foundations. When we look beyond what is temporary, we begin to catch a glimpse of what truly remains. There is something greater than the life we build here. There is something lasting, something eternal, that does not decay or disappear. While everything around us shifts and fades, the eternal things stand firm. These are the things we cannot always see with our eyes, but can sense in the deepest parts of our being. Things like faith, hope, love, and the promises of God. These are not bound by time or by the fragile nature of the world. They remain unshaken and unchangeable. The Bible speaks of these truths, reminding us that the things we often focus on are temporary, but the unseen things are eternal. It says, "For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." What a powerful reminder that while our hearts may ache for what we have lost in this life, there is something more waiting for us. There is a kingdom that cannot be shaken, a life beyond this one, where nothing can be stolen, broken, or taken away. This is not just wishful thinking or empty comfort. It is the foundation of a hope that has carried countless souls through sorrow and loss into peace and eternal life. When we begin to live with eternity in mind, our priorities shift. We start to see our time here differently. We no longer hold on so tightly to things that are destined to fade. We learn to cherish them for what they are. Gifts for a season, not possessions we can claim forever. We open our hands rather than clench our fists, knowing that everything we have in this world is temporary stewardship, not permanent ownership. And in that releasing, we find freedom. We are free from the fear of losing what we cannot keep. We are free to love without fear of loss, to give generously, to live courageously because our hope is anchored in something eternal. The eternal things are the ones that leave a lasting impact. Acts of kindness done in love, words of encouragement spoken in truth, lives touched by compassion. These ripple far beyond what we can measure here and now. They echo into eternity. Relationships rooted in faith, in the love of God, do not end at the grave. There is a reunion coming for those who have placed their trust in Him. A day when tears will be wiped away and all that was lost will be restored. That is an eternal promise, not bound by the limits of this world. There is a deep longing in every human heart for something permanent, something that lasts. We search for it in people, in accomplishments, in experiences, but they all eventually fall short. That longing is not something to be ignored. It points us to the truth that we were made for more than this temporary life. We were created with eternity in mind. Our souls are eternal, and they will live beyond these fleeting days. The question is where we place our hope, our trust, and our heart. Everything around us will pass away, but there is one thing that will never fade: God's love and His promises. He offers something this world cannot: a life that does not end, a peace that is not shaken, a joy that is not dependent on circumstances. When we hold on to what is eternal, we find the security and purpose that nothing in this world can give. And when we finally let go of our grip on the temporary, we are free to receive the lasting hope that only He can offer. There are moments in life when everything seems to be stripped away. We find ourselves standing in places we never thought would be, alone, heartbroken, empty. It might be the loss of someone we love dearly, a relationship we thought would last, or a dream we built our life around. There are times when the weight of grief is so heavy that it feels like breathing takes effort, when the silence in the room reminds us of what's no longer there. And it's in these valleys, these deep, painful places, that something remarkable happens. It's there, in the heartache and the stillness, that God meets us in a way we never expected. When we are walking through life's valleys, the things that used to distract us fall away. The noise of busy schedules, the chase for success, the constant movement of life slows to a painful stop. What once seemed important no longer matters as much. In those stripped down moments, when there's nothing left to hold on to, the presence of God becomes clearer, not because He wasn't there before, but because now we're quiet enough, still enough, broken enough to feel Him. Pain has a way of opening our eyes and our hearts in ways that comfort and ease never could. And when we are emptied, there is space for God to fill us in a deeper, more profound way. There's a tenderness in the way God draws near in times of loss. He doesn't always remove the pain or fix the broken pieces in an instant. Instead, He sits with us in it. He weeps with us. He understands the sorrow in ways no one else can. Scripture tells us that He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Those aren't just comforting words. They are a promise that God sees, God knows, and God cares. There is no valley so deep that His presence cannot reach it, no night so dark that His light cannot shine through it. The comfort of God in the valley of loss is not like the temporary comforts the world offers. People may offer kind words, but even the most well-meaning gestures can't always touch the depth of the hurt we carry. But God's comfort reaches into the raw places of our hearts. It's a peace that doesn't always make sense, but it's real. It's a peace that can steady us when we feel like we're falling apart. His comfort isn't just a gentle pat on the back. It's a strength that holds us upright when we can't stand on our own. It's a presence that says, "You are not alone in this. I am with you." In the valley of loss, we often discover the side of God that we wouldn't have known otherwise. We experience His heart in ways we might never have understood on the mountaintops of life. We learn that He is not distant or far off, but close, tender, and full of mercy. When we have nothing else to lean on, His presence becomes our refuge. When our strength is gone, His grace carries us. We come to know Him not just as Creator or King, but as Comforter, Father, and Friend. Sometimes it's in the valley that we finally listen for His voice, the voice that speaks softly, reminding us that we are loved, that we are held, that we are not forgotten. We hear Him in the quietness of our grief, in the moments when tears fall, and in the stillness of an aching heart. He speaks hope into the places where we thought life was over. He speaks life into the places that feel dead. He whispers that this is not the end of our story. God's comfort isn't just something we feel, it's something we live through. It's the strength to get out of bed when we don't want to face another day. It's the grace to forgive when bitterness threatens to take root. It's the courage to keep moving forward, even when we don't know what the next step looks like. His comfort transforms us. It softens the hard places, heals the brokenness, and gives us the ability to comfort others in their valleys one day. The comfort we receive becomes the comfort we give, and it knits us together with others in a shared understanding of pain and hope. We may not have chosen the valley, we may have never imagined walking through such loss, but it's in those deep places that God meets us, and something beautiful can begin to grow. Not because the pain disappears, but because His presence makes it bearable. His love begins to heal, slowly but surely, like dawn breaking after a long, dark night. And in time, we realize that we were never truly alone. Even when we couldn't feel Him, even when we doubted and questioned, He was there, and His comfort became the quiet miracle that carried us through. Loss is one of the deepest and most painful experiences a person can endure. It can leave us feeling empty, broken, and stripped of everything we once held dear. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, the crumbling of a dream, or the fading away of health and strength, there's a deep ache that settles into the heart. Yet, in the mystery of life, loss often serves a greater purpose than what we can see in the moment. It becomes a refining process, a shaping tool in the hands of a loving God who uses it to prepare us for something far greater than what this world offers. What we lose here, as painful as it may be, has the power to prepare us for what we will gain eternally. When we experience loss, it humbles us in ways few other things can. It reminds us how fragile life is, how temporary everything around us truly is. We can spend years building a life, carefully placing each piece where we think it belongs, and in one moment, circumstances beyond our control can take it all away. Loss brings us to the end of ourselves. It tears away pride, self-reliance, and the illusion that we are in control. In that humbling place, we are faced with eternal truths that we might have otherwise overlooked. This life is not the end, and everything we cling to here is fleeting. In loss, we are forced to confront the things that really matter, the things we once thought were so important. Possessions, achievements, titles, and status begin to fade in significance. We realize they cannot bring back what we have lost, and they cannot satisfy the deeper longings of the soul. It's in those moments when our hands are empty and our hearts are aching that we can finally see beyond what is temporary and focus on what is eternal. We are reminded that this world is not our home, that we are just passing through, and while the losses we experience here cut deep, they also prepare us for something better, something lasting that can never be taken away. Loss has a way of refining us. It strips away the unnecessary and focuses our hearts on what truly matters. Much like gold is refined by fire, our lives are often refined through suffering and loss. We are shaped and molded, our faith is tested, and we are purified in ways we could not have been in times of ease. Through the refining process, our character is strengthened, our compassion deepens, and our understanding of God's love becomes more real. We begin to value things differently. We treasure kindness, mercy, and love. We hold tighter to relationships that matter, and we become more generous with our time and our hearts. Loss refines us because it draws us closer to God and the truths that bring hope beyond this life. As we walk through seasons of loss, there is an invitation to draw near to God in ways we may never have experienced before. In our brokenness, we often find ourselves searching for comfort that only He can give. We reach out for His presence because we realize nothing else can fill the emptiness or heal the wound. And in that reaching, we find Him. We discover a God who's close to the brokenhearted, who promises to never leave or forsake us. We find a love that is not based on circumstances but is steady and faithful even in the midst of pain. What we lose here also gives us a deeper longing for heaven, a deeper hope in eternity. As the things of this world fade away, our hearts are drawn toward the promise of a place where there is no more death, no more mourning, no more pain. Loss can make heaven feel more real. It awakens a longing for a day when all things will be made new, when every tear will be wiped away, and when we will be reunited with those we have loved and lost. The pain we experience here points us forward to the joy and restoration that is to come. And in the process, loss gives us a testimony that we carry with us. It gives us a story of redemption and hope that we can offer to others who are hurting. We can speak with empathy because we have walked through the valley. We can comfort because we have been comforted. The lessons we learn through loss are not just for us. They are meant to be shared, to bring light and hope to those still searching for it. In the end, what we lose here on earth prepares us for a greater gain in eternity. It shapes our hearts to be ready for heaven. It turns our focus from the temporary to the eternal. The refining, the humbling, the drawing near to God, it all serves to prepare us for a glory that far outweighs the suffering we experience now. The pain is not wasted. The loss is not meaningless. In God's hands, it becomes part of the process that readies us for the life that is truly life, the life that never ends. And though we may not understand it fully now, one day we will see clearly. One day we will understand how everything we lost here made room for the eternal gain that was waiting for us all along. There are moments in life when it feels as if everything has been stripped away. You stand in the ruins of what was once familiar, looking around and wondering how it all disappeared so quickly. The things you loved, the people you held close, the dreams you carefully built, all gone, leaving you with empty hands and a heart weighed down with grief. Loss has a way of making you feel invisible, as if the world keeps turning while you stand still in your sorrow. It can make you feel abandoned, forgotten, as though you are drifting without anchor or direction. But no matter how far you feel you have fallen, no matter how great the emptiness within you, one truth remains unchanged. You are never lost to God. When life takes everything and you feel like nothing is left, it can seem as if even God has turned His face away. You cry out into the silence and it feels like no one answers. Yet, in that very silence, He is there. His presence does not depend on your ability to feel it. His love is not based on your circumstances. His faithfulness is not measured by the comfort of your situation. Whether you feel Him or not, He is closer than your next breath. You may be wandering in the deepest valley, but His eyes are always on you. You may feel like you are drowning in sorrow, but His hand is still holding you up, even when you cannot see it. There is no depth too low, no night too dark, no place too distant where God cannot reach you. His love knows no boundaries. It does not waver when you are weak. It does not fade when you question, when you doubt, or when you are angry at the unfairness of it all. God's love is steadfast, and it holds you even when you don't realize it. You may have lost everything, but you have never been lost to Him. People may walk away. Circumstances may strip you bare. The life you knew may collapse around you. But God does not walk away. He is the shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one that wandered. He is the father who watches and waits for his child to return, running with open arms to embrace you when you come broken and weary. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible to Him. He knows your name. He knows your story. Every tear you've cried is counted. Every sigh you've let out in the stillness of your pain has been heard. He holds you close even when you feel far away. Sometimes, when we lose everything, we find God in a way we never have before. Stripped of all the things that once filled our lives, we come face to face with the one who is always there. His love becomes clearer in the emptiness because there is nothing left to distract us from it. He meets us in the hollow places of grief and whispers that we are still His, that we are still loved, that our story is not over. God's love is not fragile. It is not dependent on our performance or our circumstances. It is constant, unwavering, and strong. You may be walking through a storm you never expected, but you are still held in His hands. You may be carrying a burden so heavy you can't take another step, but He carries you. You may feel like you've been abandoned by the world, but God has never abandoned you. You belong to Him. You are His creation, His child, His beloved, and He will never leave you behind. There are times in life when faith is not a feeling, but a choice. A choice to believe that even in the silence, God is speaking. Even in the darkness, God is present. Even in the loss, God is working. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not lost to the one who created you. His eye is always on you. His hand is always guiding you even when you don't understand the way. When all is lost, what remains is God's eternal, unchanging love. A love that does not let go. A love that meets you in the ashes and brings beauty from brokenness. A love that restores what was stolen, redeems what was broken, and renews what was lost. It may not happen in the way you expect, and it may not happen in the time you hope for, but it will happen. His promises are sure. His heart is for you. Even when you feel abandoned by life, God's love remains. Even when you are empty, He is enough. Even when the world forgets, He remembers. You may have lost everything, but you are never, ever lost to Him. And in that day, you will know, everything I loved, I found again. And it was never lost. It was safe in His hands all along. God bless you.